Hello everyone, in today's video we'll be covering what exactly you're going to need if you want to paint some LEGO minifigures. I'm using the same kind of paints and materials as when I painted my LEGO ARC Troopers, but they'll still work. So let's just get started and see what we've got. So first of all, obviously you're going to need some paint. The acrylic paint is what I'd recommend for minifigures. I tried Sharpie, it didn't work. Some other paints just don't stick, some don't show up enough. Acrylic paint is definitely the best paint I've used so far. The brand doesn't matter, like I have Craft Smart. Actually, I think they're all Craft Smart. Nope, this one's Delta Kiramacoat. So they're all different, or some of them are different, but they all work the same, so it doesn't really matter what brand as long as it's acrylic paint. You're also going to want something to paint on. I use this piece of, I don't know, construction paper. I am on a desk with a like sheet thing over it, this clear plastic thing. So even if I got paint on this, it's fine. But if you're just painting on a table, you're going to want something like this to keep the paint off your table. And yes, the paint does get everywhere, so you do want a fairly large piece of construction paper because, as you can see, mine is like completely covered. It's not quite just everywhere. So as for brushes, you're going to want something like this to hold your paint in. Very handy. This is dried, I'll clean this up later, but you're going to want something to hold your paint in. And then you're going to want some brushes. I'd have a couple of larger brushes, just if you're going to paint the whole minifigure, it goes a lot faster with a bigger brush. Then for smaller details, I like some smaller brushes like this. The kind of brush doesn't really matter, just as long as you have the right size for what you're going to be working on. And then for the extra small details, I do use quite a bit of toothpicks for the really small lines and designs. So I have all these that I used on my ARC Trooper one. And it's important to have a different brush and toothpick for every different color, so colors don't get mixed unless you really want them to. So it helps to have more brushes and toothpicks on hand. That really helps. And then I have a couple of little things I made on my own. This is for putting the hands onto. For example, I'll just use this as an example. When painting the hands, they're so tiny, and arms, sorry. They're so tiny it's hard to paint without getting paint all over yourself, so I just stick them on here, and then I just paint over them, and then I just let them dry here. So having something like this is pretty handy, so that you can paint without getting paint all over yourself. If you have something that's not made out of Lego similar to that, it's fine. It's just you might need it to be made out of Lego so the hands will attach to it. But then this other thing you could make out of just like anything. It doesn't have to be Lego. It's basically the same thing, but there's a spot for a helmet. Here, I'll just use one of my ARC Troopers. You could stick a helmet on right here and then paint it. So that's pretty helpful. So I use these two quite a bit in my painting. But make sure if you're going to build one of these or both of these and use them, make sure they're made out of pieces that you don't necessarily care that much about, because I did get paint on it, and I'm sure as I paint more I'll get more paint. See, like on this white part I got some black paint on it. So I'd recommend making it out of darker colors so it doesn't show up as much. Like I got some black paint on the bases, but since they're black it doesn't really show up. And then these are simple to build. You just need the base plate, one of these guys, one of these, and then one of the like Lego lances. And then for this one it's the same thing, you just need to stick one of these guys on and you're good. And that just about covers what you're going to need for painting your minifigures. You may also need tape or something like that if you're trying to save some of the aspects of the original minifigure, if you're going to paint over everything, but I haven't done that yet, so I don't need tape yet, but I probably eventually will, so that might also be handy to have. And then most acrylic paint takes about half an hour to an hour to dry, depending on how much paint you put on and how much you painted. So be mindful of that. If you're just sitting down for about 15 minutes, you're not going to get very much done because you're going to have to wait for everything to dry. So make sure you have a large amount of time set aside for working on a project like this, because it does take a lot of time and a big chunk. And that's just about it for our tutorial today. If there's anything else you think I should add or I need to know about, let me know in the comments below. This is Lego Man Animations, and I'll see you guys in the next video.